What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about if Quidditch makes sense for DLC for Hogwarts Legacy. So let's start talking about DLC for this game. I want to try to break up different ideas I have for potential DLC in these videos. So, I'm just focusing on Quidditch right now, but we'll be talking about other potentials, as well as if they're even going to do it, right? Right now, they say no. Game developers lie all the time. I'm not willing to take Alan just at his word that because he says so, it's absolutely never going to happen for the rest of our lives, right? So I do think Quidditch is a possibility. It's why, obviously, I wanted to start this series out with it. So will it work? Could it work? Like, what do we know? Well, there's that age-old debate of, and I really think this is maybe the most important thing, were they actually working on it? Because when the art book leaked, there was the other leaks that came along with it. Now, I actually haven't gone back to look because I try to stay away from those leaks like the plague when they first came out. I do actually think several of those leaks turned out to be true in terms of what they were saying about this game. Not all of them. And Quidditch was one of them, right? It was one of the most heavily talked about topics where the idea or the leak was that they had actually worked on this game. When this game had first started development, Quidditch was, like, they were doing it. It was going to be in the game. You were going to be able to play it. And they actually removed it. They actually took it out. So the thing for me is that is the most important, because if it's true, then I do think Quidditch is incredibly likely. I've always said that I actually think Quidditch is, if you take that part out, I think Quidditch is actually pretty unlikely to be DLC. And it would probably be for just all the reasons that I've talked about in the past. To do it, you'd have to do it incredibly well. Actually, a week or so ago, I talked to Troy, right, former developer on the game, and we had a whole kind of segment where we talked about Quidditch, and it was a pretty good conversation, to be honest, and he said some interesting things with Quidditch as well, where, of course, they wanted it, and then, they kind of realized it wasn't going to work, without kind of giving away, by the way, if that means that it was in the game, or it was just like an idea phase, that they thought they could do Quidditch, and then maybe they tested it just a little, and they realized they couldn't. He didn't really give that away. Very, very smart man, but it's still the basic idea. If Quidditch was, like, heavily tested early on, and it was kind of in the game, I think it's something you go back to, and where you can go back to at least. And then the question is that something that they would be interested in? Another element I'd like to bring up is the money. Now, this isn't even so much for Avalanche, but we've talked about this before. It's also, those higher ups, those dang executives, where, all right, if you do DLC, well, number one, you have to probably charge for it, right? You imagine, no matter what DLC it'll be. And we'll talk about probably smaller DLC options for them in future videos. But if you do Quidditch, well, if it's like a $20 thing, right? Do you charge $20? Like, what do you do? I've always pitched the idea of a Quidditch World Cup, whether it be a remake or literally a built-from-the-ground-up Quidditch game that's a separate game. And Avalanche wouldn't do it. This is all just in my head. Another studio would make this game for Portkey, and they'd publish it, and we would get a separate Wizarding World game. I think that makes a lot of sense. I don't think that guarantees that it's going to be amazing. I've always held pretty firm on that. I think that's very likely to happen, but I also think the dangers of microtransactions and live service and battle pass and free to play, all these things, which, yes, they can sometimes be successful and they can sometimes work and not offend people, oftentimes they fail. Oftentimes they fail, oftentimes they're predatory in the money that they're trying to make from people. But ultimately, if I'm thinking about it from the executives, right, who kind of makes these decisions, I think that's probably the way that you go. So again, the reason I'm bringing that up is because, well, would you do a $20 Quidditch DLC for Hogwarts Legacy where you got a quest that introduces Quidditch and you can make a team and you can play games against AI? Now, you'd have to probably do online too, right? That's the thing. If you're going to do Quidditch, you got to go all in. So to do a DLC where you can literally just play Quidditch, it's a quest, and then it's just an arena. You can walk into the arena, like the Dark Arts Arena, let's say. You walk into it, and you can just play, and there's like 3 difficulties. You pick your house, you play on that team, you play as the Seeker, and you're done. Firstly, is that worth $20? I'm just throwing, I guess it could be more, 25, 30, but, then there's the debate of the price. Is that worth the price? Is that something people would actually do? Well, I would argue people would immediately want multiplayer. They'd want to be able to play it against other people. All right, so now you have to add multiplayer. Is that even worth doing? Now, there's 2 options. You can do the one that I've been kind of explaining, give it to another team, have it, find a team out there that's good at multiplayer, like sports kind of things, and say, hey, can you do this for us? And they do it. You could do that. Or you could literally put Quidditch in Hogwarts Legacy 2. Here's the kicker. No matter even if you do a Quidditch World Cup, say, game on the side, I still think the expectation is that Hogwarts Legacy 2 has Quidditch. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I would argue that even if you have a full-scale Quidditch game, I still think the general public, in your open world, living your life, it's your character, living your tale in a Hogwarts Legacy 2, you're a 6-year student, I think most people would say, well, I also want Quidditch in there. So actually, the kicker of the entire thing is I think no matter what, Quidditch is almost a requirement for the second game. So then the question is, okay, now factor that into what we just said. So do you do it for DLC? Because if you're just going to put in the second game, and also, does that feel cheated to us? See, this is an interesting thing. If we get Quidditch for DLC, and then it's just included in the next game, well, then we just paid for the game and then paid extra for a mode for the game, and then the next game is going to have both. How do people feel about that? Well, I personally wouldn't feel great, but ultimately, I do think of like Wizards chess and stuff. You may run into the issue no matter what. If you introduce DLC for this game and it's additional content that then becomes just the norm, it's just built into the second game, well, that's a little unfair, but you will run into that issue with a lot of things you could choose to do. Dueling, some sort of multiplayer thing with that, maybe that's in the next game. So you would potentially run into these issues no matter what. So for me, I'm going to stay pretty strong. I'm going to still say no. I do think the odds improve if the rumor is true, if you maybe read into Troy the right way or wrong way, or, whatever you want to do. If they were heavily working on it, if it was removed from the game, say 3-4 years ago, right? They took it out. There's a high possibility they go back to it. Now, is the possibility that they go back to it for DLC or that they just put it into their next game? See, I think for DLC, it's going to be different stuff. I think it'll be more quest-based stuff, and we'll talk about that in future videos. But that's the angle that I'm kind of taking. I think it makes more sense to just, whether it's going to upset people or not, I think it makes the most sense to do kind of just a Quidditch standalone game, not from Avalanche. We can worry about pricing. We can worry about microtransactions. I will worry about it, but we'll have that talk for that game. And then I also think it probably is in Hogwarts Legacy 2. But I don't think it's going to be DLC. So let me just throw it out there right now. But you guys let me know in the comments, what do you think? Quidditch, yes or no, for DLC specifically for this game. Make sure you guys are subscribed, bell icon turned on. If you want to check out any of our other social medias, we got Discord. I have many other channels as well. All the links are in the description below. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you all on the next one.